Look at this. What kind of pine do we have here?
When I purchased it, I autopilot mode thought it was a shore pine because pretty much everything else he had were either shore pines or mountain hemlocks.
Yeah.
I think it's actually just a vanilla lodgepole though.
Yeah.
Just based on the bark, unless it's younger than it looks and therefore the bark isn't as developed. But yeah. Either way, it's a 2-needle pine. Yeah, it's either a shore pine, contorta contorta, or a lodgepole contorta.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of kind of artificial carving work on it. You've probably noticed this when you're out collecting. That I'll spin it around. You get on pines, you often get this like one bend kind of close to the base, where
Yeah.
it heaved over in the snow.
Yeah.
I think that's the case here.
Yeah. Deadwood though, eh? Looks like
Yeah.
it's been carved out a bit or something. Is that?
Yeah,
That is?
I think that's the artificial portion there.
Yeah.
And then up there, maybe it's just naturally how it is.
Yeah.
Artificial or not, though, I quite like the gin that it's got there.
Yeah.
I don't know if the tree was intended to be styled like this or what. It's got a really strong root base.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could anchor some pretty crazy movement.
Yeah, this right. It holds a lot of visual weight against that.
I'd love to find a way to bring it somewhere up here. Like
Yeah, it brings the whole movement up versus sideways, right? And
And
you lose the parallel lines, which is nice.
yeah, and hard to see, but there's quite a bit of subtle changes in direction and whatnot through there. So if I can manage it, I really do think there's an angle somewhere in here that would be best.
Yeah.
And really keep.
I've been loving these downward, squished right against it branches. Like it's just amazing.
Yeah, that'll obviously be kept and used to kind of
Yeah, flattened out a bit, right?
keep the eye in the trunk. But I think the defining kind of directional branch is going to be somewhere out here.
Yep.
Still has the great base, so I think we can really anchor that.
Push it out
flow
that way.
still, not to the same extent it is on its current kind of planting angle.
Yeah.
But yeah, even just bringing the apex back around that way, so it's also flowing that direction. Like it, after the major root work, it obviously has the density and the ramification already built in more or less. So it'll develop really, really quickly once it's in a nice container at the proper angle.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be a beautiful tree. It's so thick, right? Such a thick base. Especially for a lodgepole. Like you just don't see short lodgepoles. They're straight up, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hence the name.
Yeah. What kind of? So we got a hemlock here. Is that what this is?
Yeah, another mountain hemlock.
Yeah. Look at that though.
The bases.
That curve. And this knob. I love that knob for some reason. I mean, sometimes people shave those off, but I kind of like that. And there's just so much movement up this trunk.
Yeah, tons of little changes in direction and trunk diameter and whatnot. I think when I styled it, I had it tilted just a little forward.
Oh yeah.
But this might not even be the front. I kind of put it together in such a way that it could be here, or it could be somewhere there. Here, yeah, the base of the tree is a little obscured. Part of that is the container.
Yeah.
Part of
you
that,
get some of that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Part of that is that I've got these two trunks that are almost doing the same thing.
Yeah. Right.
They're more branches.
Yeah.
They're almost filling the exact same role, but when I styled it, I kept both because the bending that I had to do was pretty severe. Like these were all laying pretty much flat.
Flat. Okay. Wow.
It was just this one tree. I kind of bought it for this.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I'd be able to use anything down here.
Yep.
But anyways, I was worried doing these severe bends that one might break, or there might have been damage to the tissue that I couldn't see, and it would eventually just die, especially coming into the hot portion of summer.
Keep both of them, right?
Keep both for now. And two, when it had been collected, looked like a handsaw or something slipped and put a cut on this top edge here.
Yeah.
Which, when bending, it acted as like the fulcrum point.
Right.
Almost like a wedge cut.
Yeah.
But it seems to be doing fine.
Yeah, it looks like it's doing really well.
This one put on, not a ton of new growth.
Yeah.
But pretty consistent across the branches, and it's got good bud set for next year showing up.
Yeah.
And then the crown grew like stink.
Yeah. Oh, you see, you got lots of nice wire on it, twisting the branches around, and
Yeah.
it's giving it some shape, the structure some shape, right?
Yeah, it's almost time to remove a little bit of the wire, which
Yeah.
is surprising. Like we haven't even entered fall where they really start to thicken up.
Yeah.
But you can see like in there's a little bit of bite starting to happen, which makes sense because this branch is quite strong.
Yeah, and
So-
it's small, so it's got a
Yeah.
lot to grow. And
But especially with hemlock, you really got to let it set.
okay.
Like, the scars will disappear.
Yeah, right, because it just bounces back.
But
It's
if you're
real
having
flexible.
to rewire a branch over and over and over and over, you're doing damage in a different sense that way too.
every
Yeah.
time too, and yeah,
But
these hemlocks are great.
Yeah.
So when you think about the design of this, what I mean, small trees coming in the big zone here, or like
Yeah.
what are you thinking with
well,
this?
it's almost like
Yeah, man.
back when this was a proper upright tree, let's say,
Yeah.
you had it growing upright, and all these were a branch coming out of a whorl,
Yeah.
and then something happens to the top, the whole tree gets kind of knocked over by another falling tree,
Yep.
breaks the top, it dies back to there, whatever, and all you've got left is this low whorl, all right, and they've all got this downward orientation.
Yeah.
But now the tree's tipped over and everything starts to kind of move up towards light again. But at a certain point, they hit that weather
Right.
that originally broke the top.
Yeah. Right.
So maybe it's not a consistent wind, but they're in some zone that occasionally just blows this big storm.
Right. They would
so-
have originally knocked this off, and so then you
So,
right.
so that's being reflected in all the trunks now. Once they get past a certain point, they really start to move
Yeah.
that direction.
That's
So
great.
it'll likely be a 3-trunk thing. I think
Yeah.
that one's gonna go.
Right.
I don't know if I'm gonna keep this drop branch. It was there. I used it.
Yeah. so
it'll
keep-
make
keep keep this one here
Yeah.
and this main one here.
Yeah.
And then have this top one. Yeah. Yeah, because it's what do you call that? Yeah, cluttered, hard for the eye to know what to do.
especially with a green backdrop.
Backdrop. Yeah, exactly.
But-
Yeah, I mean this will be this is such a nice elegant piece
Mhm.
coming in, right? If you can get that mimicking the top a bit. And yeah, no, I
Exactly.
can totally see it now.
And for this to thicken up too, like
Yeah.
as something really starts to run from somewhere up in the crown, I'll just let it run
Let it go.
and just really try to like at least double the width of this, because this right now does look quite superficial. It looks like a branch that I moved up to pretend to be a trunk, so you know it does need to thicken up in a pretty big container. So
Yeah.
but to tell the story of this one, I need both halves.
Oh, both halves of it, eh?
So this came out of a very special zone that has it's a private land and he has a lot of beavers,
Okay.
and there's like probably a few hundred if not thousand deciduous stuff that have been cut back repeatedly
Wow.
by said beavers. So hard to display in the containers, but both these halves were together, and there was
Okay.
a central stem between the two, so it was
there
kind of
we
like
go.
a triple trunk thing going on.
Yeah.
But this central stem had the best taper I've ever seen. Like,
Oh, wow.
it was perfect,
Right.
but it was already dead when I collected it. I just didn't recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
Within a couple months of owning it, I could see the
You
the
realized.
swelling on
Yeah.
either end of this center core.
Yeah.
Um,
Because you collected it before it had leaves on, probably, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah. Right.
and it was quite dark.
And what is this? What are we looking at?
This is a like the native alders that grow here.
Okay.
I'm slipping on the Latin name, but they're a very like for us a low elevation tree, usually
Okay.
close to lake level, and growing in what is for a lot of the year standing water.
Okay. Yeah, I can't see I've actually seen any of these. I mean, I'm sure I have. I just haven't
Yeah.
registered them.
Well, most of them are kind of like taperless clumps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
or
yeah, I know what you're-
it's,
yeah,
it's
okay.
grown like a birch tree where it's maybe like a 30-foot
Okay, right.
just
Right, so it grows as a
basic canopy
grows as
tree.
a clump like the birch do, but then
Yeah.
grows. Okay, interesting.
Often you'll see stuff down by the lake growing over stones with this
Yeah.
fantastic nabari, but you're never going to be able to collect them because it's just surface roots going out for meters before
Right.
they hit the edge of the beach and
Yeah.
give you decent feeders. So I was really lucky to find this and dig it. and I felt very unlucky that the center had died off.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting out of it is instead 2 trees,
Yeah.
and they're really not bad.
Well, great in a bari, right? Like,
Yeah.
You probably kind of developed that a bit too.
No, this is just
what it
really
is.
just how it was. It was repotted once in the sense that it was separated.
Yeah.
So I still haven't really picked the front. It's somewhere in here.
Yeah.
And I've just been kind of experimenting with how it responds to different kinds of pruning and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't completely done a full defoliation of it.
Yeah.
But I did like a partial defoliation and leaf cutting this year.
Yeah.
And
Look
I
at
mean, you
it.
can see the density.
Yeah. It's really shooting out, right?
Yeah, actually, some areas I've cut back twice already, and that would be like up here.
Well, you can see the amount of growth coming out, right? Of just shooting out everywhere. It responds really well then, obviously, too. And how long did you just collect this last year? Or has this been a couple years?
I forget exactly when. I think it was like separated. That might have been the beginning of last spring. And it was, must have been when it was wired last fall for the first time.
Okay.
It's not going to be representative of like a deciduous tree, especially not of an alder. Like it seemed to suit bringing things down.
Yeah.
Center things around that. It's really showing off that kind of straight section there.
Yeah.
This one's going to be a little more, I don't know what the word is, wacky.
Yeah.
It might be like a semi-cascade thing.
Yeah, because you see that branch coming down. Right? That's just this huge sideways trunk, really. Is what that is, and then growth coming.
Big gripping roots here and whatnot.
Yeah. It's great though. Love that.
Good illustration here of a sacrifice branch.
Yeah, right.
This is the number one branch on the tree. They're almost all coming out of the same spot. They're not quite. So it needed to thicken up.
Yep.
So I pulled off a few leaves so they weren't shading out what I do want to develop.
Right.
And I'm just, I could probably do a bit more, but just
take that whole top off.
Let that run, keep the branches behind it healthy and growing. And then once I've got the thickness I want, I'll cut off the sacrifice portion and start building ramification in.
Yeah.
As opposed to cutting everything back to start building ramification now.
Right.
Off this spindly little
build
thing.
The structure of the branch first and then go for ramification, right?
And it'll be so hard to catch up. Like even just this little distance between here and what the apex is, if everything's being cut back equally to make ramification, the apex is still going to develop more quickly.
Yeah, right.
It's going to thicken up a little more quickly, especially if I miss defoliation, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take long for this much leaf mass to really thicken
a branch,
up the wood, so.
Well, you can even see, I mean, you got some nice big leaves here, bigger than the other ones, and so that'll help thicken it, right? I mean, that's a big leaf.
Yeah, I can pull that off. The difference in leaf size from no defoliation,
right,
1 defoliation and pruning, and then we'll see how big these newest shoots get.
Yeah,
like they're still quite juvenile. You can see the color difference and whatnot, but we'll see how big it gets, and hopefully it's not that big.
Yeah, you can really pull it down when you need to. Oh, those are great. So this is a this is a fir. You obviously collected this.
Yeah, it was this spring.
This is something else with this container. I love the star-shaped or whatever shape that, I don't even know. It's beyond my geometry. But obviously some intense roots coming out.
Yeah, it was growing just off the side of a forestry access road, just up a little slope, which is thankful because it was really quite heavy.
Yeah.
And it was growing on like not a like a big piece of granite. It was growing in a boulder field.
Okay.
But it's like every single primary root coming off of it just went to another boulder that held its own kind of independent little pocket of roots.
Right.
So I don't think there was no taproot actually.
Okay.
What there was I wish I had it out here, like a little kind of swelled bit of a taproot. Like it tried to go down, hit rock, failed, but then calloused over and just kept on thickening with the rest of the trunk. So, and I was able to count, well, I need a microscope or something, but I'll be able to count the rings to figure out the age of the tree based on that.
Yeah.
I think what I counted, I don't even want to wager a guess. It was impossible.
Yeah.
At least over 40.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that old, but
beautiful.
This trunk, in terms of visibility, when I first spotted it, that's all I could see. They're up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So amazing. Good taper underneath.
And it wasn't buried in soil. It was buried in like decomposing leaf matter, and a birch tree had crumbled apart beside it.
Okay.
And that was obscuring the view of it. So you don't really know exactly what the trunk looks like until you get down and look for it.
I love it. I love this raw sort of raw material. Nice to see.
Yeah, and it's responded pretty well. Like often when I dug firs, that year's growth, I'm grabbing them in spring before they push, but that year's growth is usually really, really short.
Right.
In fact, there's this one beside us here. This
Oh,
is again
yeah,
collected
look at
this. You can see this year's growth. Those tiny needles there.
Yeah. There's a good example too, right? You can kind of see the.
This tree is actually doing pretty good. Worth noting. The color's improved a lot since I collected it.
Oh.
Like the top's still a little yellowed, but the whole thing was quite yellow.
Yeah, you can really actually see the difference, right? From this yellow, and you're getting some new little buds coming out here. But then when you compare it to that, right? It's
But we can compare the weak tree, that there, and then this other tree collected at almost the same time. But this just had more roots, right?
Yeah.
So it's doing great. It's even back budding already. You can see these little buds showing up. It's only in a few spots on the tree, but I have not had a Doug fir start to recover quite that quickly, so I'm quite happy about that.
Yeah, it's nice to know that they can. Too, right? Like if you do it all right, it's that they'll.
Yeah, if you get the right amount of roots and you keep the tree properly watered, and it's been almost in full sun this whole time too.
Okay.
A little bit of protection early on, just because sometimes we get those really weird warm days in the early spring.
Yeah.
Like it can go above 30 degrees in the first week of May, which can be pretty stressful on trees that are just putting that soft fleshy growth out. So I protected it then. Otherwise, it's been full tilt. It doesn't even get watered every day. Like I check on it, and it's frequently still wet. So
Well, and you see a lot of the firs out, right? I've been sort of moving my plants around my benches and trying to figure out where's nice, right? I noticed the hemlocks, of course, right? They don't want that full sun.
No.
But the firs seem to be able to take it a little better and maybe thrive off it.
I always find them growing. I mean, you can find Doug firs growing in all kinds of environments here, but the ones worth collecting are typically growing close to ponderosa pine. Full sun, up on rocks and
hot and dry, right?
Yeah, so they can obviously tolerate it. Whether or not they appreciate it, that's a different thing. But I mean, I'm getting back budding months later. And we compare that to this Doug fir, which I got a ton of roots, and the root work to get it into a container and off the mountain was way less severe than that one, honestly. Like I cut. I don't even know if I cut any roots. It might have just come out, but it was kept in a shadier environment. Okay. And only now am I starting to get
you're
the
getting
budding.
A lot of back budding, but still,
And this is out of the ground for 2.5 years. Well, that's out of the ground for just half a year now. So if they can tolerate it, give them the light. If you put them out and the colors change in the foliage, or there's other signs that it's struggling, move back into dappled sunlight or partial shade. But if they can take it, give them the sun.
Nice.